Well, welcome to our latest Leaders Update from NWBA, just seeking to help you think through your role in these unexpected times and try and offer you a little bit of support in that. And you may remember at the outset of this lockdown, we suggested 6 priorities that churches might want to think about, and we highlighted that that was kind of going to be the framework around which we offered our support and our resources. And if you want to make sure that you're alerted and kept up to date with any future updates, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel or keep your eye on our website. But this is the first of what we're calling our Priority 6 videos, which is beginning to think about life after lockdown. Now, let me be clear, we have no inside information on what is happening at the moment, so please make sure that you stay in touch with the latest government advice, and what we have put together is just to try and help you respond to that. So what we've offered is this download, which you can find on our website, probably in the COVID area of the website, and we'll probably email it to some of you as well, which just tries to think through some of the possible scenarios and issues that might emerge. And I'd encourage you to engage with that and just to start thinking through what the various possibilities might mean for your church and your congregation. And as I said, you can find that as a download on our website. But what I really want to talk about is something else. Yes, of course, we're going to want to restart things, we're going to want to reopen activities, and we're going to want to go ahead with things that we've had on hold. But I don't think that this is just a matter of picking up where we left off. And alongside the practical issues, I think that as leaders, we also need to begin reflecting on what's changed and perhaps what needs to change in the months and years ahead. In short, what have we learned in the last couple of months, and what difference is that going to make to us? And as I listen to the various narratives that are circulating at the moment, I sense that there are perhaps 2 distinct sets of voices that are beginning to emerge. One is basically saying, when can we get back to normal? When can we start living the lives that we used to live? And I can understand the impatience and the frustration that might lie behind questions like that. But I'm also hearing other voices that are saying, we don't think our world should be the same again. We've learned some important lessons. We've learned to do without things that actually, when we think about it, might be better for our world's well-being if we carried on managing without them. We've been made to appreciate things that we previously took for granted, and so I could go on. And I don't think it's as simple as saying that a Christian viewpoint is represented by one or the other of those. I've heard from people saying, we can't wait to get back to church the way it used to be. And I've heard from other people who are saying, this has really made me ask some questions about how I live out my Christian discipleship and what church is all about. I can never see us going back to church the way it used to be. So I suspect that we're going to be confronted by these 2 narratives in our churches as and when our buildings do begin to reopen and people are able to meet again. And I sense that we as leaders need to think carefully and prayerfully about how we manage that reality, because that may even be true within our leadership teams. And I really just want to encourage you to set your mind thinking in that direction. And indeed, I know that many of you are already having these kind of conversations between ministers and among our diaconates and our leadership teams, because we do have to acknowledge that things have changed. But let me suggest 4 realities or 4 questions that you might want to ask to help you begin to think that through. And the first question is, how has this changed me? You know, in recent weeks, many of us have had to adapt and learn new skills. But we've also been affected on a human level by what's been happening around us. Some of us have had to fight this virus for ourselves, or we've seen loved ones going through that trauma. Or we've maybe been bereaved, or maybe just really, really concerned for loved ones. And we'll also have been absorbing the big narratives and facing the same fears and frustrations as everyone else. And this will have taken its toll on us. It will have shaped the people that we are. We are very likely to have changed as people. And yeah, this may then affect what we feel about our role and our calling in the days ahead. So it feels important to me that we take some time to just gather our own thoughts, to get in touch with ourselves, to check out our own well-being, and perhaps just get clear in our own minds how recent events have affected us. Maybe writing a journal, maybe just writing yourself an email, or just noting some stuff down. And then we need to think, how are we going to communicate and share that with others? Because as I said, other people's thinking may be quite different to ours. And therefore that takes me to my second point, which is a bit obvious. We've changed, but the other question we need to ask is, how have other people changed too? And that will mean other leaders in our local congregation. It will mean members of that congregation. It may mean different things for different age groups, or people with different roles that have maybe come to the fore or felt a bit in the background in recent days. And all of the issues that we've been going through, the reflecting, the struggling, the asking questions, the concern, the bereavement, well, everyone else has been going through that too. Now, I suspect that a lot of our attention in recent weeks, when we've managed to meet as leaders on various conference platforms and things, will probably a lot of the time been around how we keep the show on the road. You know, there've been issues of finance, buildings, trying to keep up with legislation and changing government policy, setting up networks to keep the congregation in touch with each other. And yes, I know that in the midst of that, many of you have been asking the bigger questions about what we're learning and what we might learn as churches from all of this. But I feel it's important too to distinguish that from simply engaging with each other as people. How has this affected your fellow leaders as people, as human beings? How have they been impacted? How have they changed? And how can you begin those conversations with the wider church community? What feelings and fears, what hopes and expectations will people be bringing with them as we begin to regroup as church communities? And you might call what I've just described asking questions about how we've changed as people. But I think there's another related but distinct question. And that is, how has our understanding of church changed? We've had to do things very differently, but in doing that, we've begun to ask questions about why we do what we do, about what things should take priority over others, or maybe we've just had time to think in a way that the busyness of previous routines never quite allowed us to do. But we haven't been together, which means that while some of us may have had thoughts and ideas that have taken us in one direction, others might have been taken in a very different direction, and perhaps we haven't met, so we haven't talked to each other about that. So how can we begin to start those conversations that help us take an honest look at ourselves, to listen to the diverse voices that are inevitably going to emerge? Like I said earlier, it may be for some that absence has made the heart grow fonder, and they are even more determined that things should return to the way they used to be, while others perhaps have had some serious rethinks around what church should be about. So maybe begin with yourself. How has your understanding of the nature and purpose of church changed? And how does this impact your understanding of the ministry of your own church, of your own ministry within that? And what are others thinking? How can we test out what we're thinking and hearing? And I guess most importantly of all, how can we make sure that we're listening to God and not just human opinion? And then there's our fourth question that I think we need to ask. And that is, how has society changed? Jim Kirk, that's the missiologist, not the Star Trek guy, once wrote that the local church is God's key instrument of mission. Now, as churches, we are, of course, the body of Christ with Jesus at our head, but we are also shaped by the community that we seek to serve, those to whom we have been called to proclaim the gospel. So even if we have changed, even if others in the church have changed, even if our understanding of church has changed, we also need to explore things from the outside in. What kind of church will our community need in the months and years ahead? How have they changed? What new priorities do we need to help our communities to capture and embed into local life? You know, different people will have been impacted in different ways by everything that's gone on recently. And I think it's crucial that we don't just look inwardly, Even though there will be significant issues arising from within ourselves, we also have to be asking, what kind of world is going to emerge from this crisis? How will people have changed? And how are we called to be church in the light of that? Well, there's a whole load of things that I'm sure will be triggered by each of these questions. And as I've said, I'm sure that many of you are asking them already. But maybe this is just a little framework for your thinking. How have I been changed by this? How have others been changed by this? How has our understanding of church been changed? And how has society been changed? And what does that say to us as a church? But I'm not just offering these questions to tell you what to do. You've probably worked out most of that already. But to also encourage you to share your thoughts, because there are two other questions that naturally emerge from the ones that I've suggested. What kind of regional association do you need in the light of your thinking? And what kind of union do we need to be nationally? So please share your thoughts with us. Help us to be part of your conversation so that together we can serve God faithfully and effectively in the world that emerges from this. Thanks for listening.